Hello and welcome to day 5 of the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup. Today we saw the Netherlands take on New Zealand, and New Zealand pretty much took care of business, I would say. Scored 322 for 7, and the Netherlands 223 all out. We'll be breaking all of that down right up after this.
I've got the wrong intro music for you, Stu. I should have had Backman Turner Overdrive taking care of business.
Oh, nice. I'm certainly refreshed. You had a nice little moment there with your coffee, I would say it probably is.
I'm delicious short black this morning.
Refreshed after a day off. Didn't get to chat to you about Australia, India, but you and Raj did a wonderful job yesterday. I mentioned New Zealand unbeaten now, 2 from 2, starting to do what they do really, really well in these Cricket World Cups, just take care of business.
Yeah, perfect start for New Zealand, wasn't it? I mean, if you have a look at it, contributions from everyone with bat. You took care of business with the ball, as you said. I mean, what's not to like here, Stuart? This is pretty much a perfect game for New Zealand, right?
Well, I wouldn't say it was a perfect game.
Come on.
Well, I think the scorecard, 99-run victory. It's interesting. We haven't seen a close game in this World Cup. I think the India-Australia game is probably the closest game we've seen to date, which I don't know what that means for the rest of the tournament. Probably not a lot. I remember last time I was on here saying we're going to see massive scores for most of the sort of first half of this World Cup, and then India-Australia the next day, I think, changed that. So, yeah, I don't know what the scores necessarily mean, or the closeness of the fixtures necessarily means for what we're going to expect for the coming days. But I think for New Zealand, there are obviously a lot of positives that we'll talk about in a minute. But I think the fact that no one kind of kicked on and got a big score, there'll probably be a lot of people in that batting lineup, particularly Will Young, I think, will be disappointed that he didn't go on and get a big score. We saw kind of every time, it was an interesting innings. Every time New Zealand felt like they were about to really start to put the foot down and get the innings moving, maybe crank it up past 350, up towards 400, Netherlands would pull it back. And credit to Netherlands, I mean, they started with 3 maidens and, we're sitting there going, okay, it might be nice if they score a run sometime soon. But New Zealand didn't panic and, sort of got 60 off the next 6 overs. But Netherlands pulled it back. Some tight overs, got Devin Conway's wicket. New Zealand put the foot down again, more tight overs. And even right at the death, I think was probably what New Zealand would be most disappointed, that Glenn Phillips got out cheaply, Mark Chapman got out cheaply, and it meant that they sort of stuttered to the end until Santner and Latham, and then Matt Henry kind of got them 50 off 3 overs to put them up over that 300 mark.
Yeah, let's break that down a little, because, I mean, in a game against the Netherlands, it was a game I think all New Zealand fans and most neutral fans would expect New Zealand to win and win comfortably, and they did in the end. They won by close to 100, and we would expect that this game wouldn't have been particularly close throughout the game. But from a New Zealand perspective, Conway and Ravindra got big hundreds in the first game against England. No one else really got a bat other than Will Young, who tickled one down leg side, first cherry and gone. However, in this game, all of the top 5 got a good piece of batting time at the crease. Okay, yes, no one went on, but they were all able to make contributions to a reasonably big total, with the exception of Phillips and Chapman. So that's really the only fly in the ointment that I could see for you guys. Even losing 3 for 16 in the last 10 overs, a little mini collapse there, it did enable Latham, Santner, and Henry to figure it out and solve the problem. So even though there was a little mini collapse, it didn't become 3 for 16 becomes 5 for 40, and New Zealand all out 270, 280, right? So I think even though that there was a little hiccup there along the way, you've got enough contributions to give yourselves a bit of a selection headache going forward, and we might talk about that later.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's really encouraging for both of New Zealand's 2 innings so far with the bat is that they're not having to do anything too special. I mean, I mentioned the 3 maidens up front, and they very quickly, they sort of didn't panic. Ian Smith was on the commentary at that time, and he was talking about how Devon Conway's not going to panic because he knows he can catch it up later on. And immediately, like I said, 60 off the next 6 overs, suddenly their run rate's over 6 and they're going really well. And even, you look at you look at up and down the scorecard, Will Young 70 off 80, Ravindra 50 off 50 or 51 off 51, Mitchell 48 off 47, Latham 53 off 46. Nobody is kind of going bananas, but they're managing to very, very easily, without doing too much, without taking too many risks, I would say, they've got up to 320. And, I think I look back to when we were previewing this World Cup, my main concern was how are New Zealand going to get over 300? But they're making it look very, very easy right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you have a look at that attack, it's not the same quality of attack that we're going to see New Zealand facing, against Pakistan, against Australia, against other sides, against India, etc. throughout the tournament. However, they did a great job of negating Buzz DeLeader, who's had a wonderful tournament so far, 1 for 64 off his 10, and then were able to get six and a bit off every bowler. So they were able to make sure that they took every bowler for a run of ball. They didn't let anyone settle throughout the innings, in terms of their overall statistics. So, look, a really, really solid, if I say, dare I say, a New Zealand-like batting performance across that batting innings, right?
Yeah, and look, I mean, the Netherlands, they certainly missed Logan van Beek. I mean, he would have been right up for this game. I know he's got some very close friends in that New Zealand side, and obviously
into the top 3 for New Zealand even.
Exactly. So yeah, and played a lot of cricket with a lot of them, a lot of Canterbury boys and the Wellington boys now there. So yeah, he would have been right up for this game. So it's a shame that he missed that for him personally. And then on selection, New Zealand went with Lockie Ferguson over James Neesham. I think an interesting decision, and probably more in that I think that signals probably the balance that New Zealand wants to take. And that we want to have 4 specialist bowlers, I would say, for the remainder of the tournament, and then make up the overs with Ravindra most likely, and then Mitchell, Phillips, and we obviously haven't seen Mitchell at the bowling crease, but I would say Phillips, Mitchell, whoever is going to be in the mix there with Ravindra to pick up overs if we need to.
Certainly a lot of options for New Zealand there. Will Young made 70, having nicked off early in the last game. Everyone in the top 5 has now made runs. Kane's going to come back at some point. Who makes way for Kane at this point, Stu?
Yeah, does Kane get a spot back? That's the big question. No, he obviously does. You've got to bring him back, and I think I do think that they talked about it a bit in the commentary about how Will Young, Simon Doull talked about it sort of in a very weird way. Actually, he was talking about how he would have actually just played Ravindra and Conway opening in this game, kind of just with the mindset of that's what we probably want to do going forward. So let's do it now. Let's either have Neesham as your extra batter, or you just go with Sodhi and you go with whatever you want to do. Because Will Young, I think there's a lot. I have a lot of Will Young stock, and actually I think it's quite important to point out that Will Young. We're playing Bangladesh in the next game. We're playing Afghanistan the game after that. Both at Chennai, spin friendly. You saw what a part that spin played in that game. India Australia. Will Young just had a 3-match ODI series against Bangladesh, who we're playing in the next game. Scored 250s. He's actually got an excellent ODI record in Asia. 5 50s from his 10 games. Averages 47. He's quite good against spin, going down the ground. Very, very strong at coming down the wicket and hitting over the top there. Scored an 89 in a test against India in India. So I think that he's got a very strong case to be in that side. The tricky part is for that lineup that if you keep him and Conway at 3 and at opening and Kane at 3, where does Ravindra go? Because he has to feature now. He's scored 100, an effortless 100. It was a sort of very different innings from him today. It wasn't as fluent at all, but still, like I said, managed to score at a run a ball, and then quite unlucky, caught down the leg side, strangled down the leg side. Excellent catch from Scott Edwards in the end. So yeah, I do think it's a tricky decision because if you do keep Will Young, then you've got to have him probably down or move Rachin Ravindra down to 7, and then that takes out Mark Chapman maybe. So yeah, a few things to consider.
Yeah, it's going to be a pleasant problem for the New Zealand selectors to have, really. Kane definitely comes back to bat at 3. It's whether or not everyone just slides down 1 or Ravindra slides down to 4 and then Mitchell slides down to 6. I mean, these are all great problems for New Zealand to have. It's just going to be a case of where does that middle order shuffle leave all of the deck chairs at the end of that. But I think New Zealand are in a great spot.
It probably comes down to New Zealand's going to have to decide, do they think that it's more valuable? Do they think, how good a finisher do they think Mark Chapman is? Because if they think he is an excellent finisher and someone we need to have in that side, then I think they are going to have to make the tough call and put Ravindra up to open and leave out Will Young. I think it would be a really tough call, but it's something they're going to have to do, and it's a good problem to have, right? If they've got Will Young sitting on the bench after scoring a 70, he can come in and do some, come in with confidence if he is required later on in the tournament. So, yeah, we'll see what they do. I do think in terms of selection, we'll see Sodhi back in for Lockie Ferguson for the next game because of that spin factor. But, yeah, it's good problems to have, and sitting there nicely at the top of the table, New Zealand can feel pretty happy about what they've done so far.
Well, let's shift tack now, and we'll talk about the New Zealand bowling. And this is going to be a very pleasant conversation for us because Matt Henry's done well, and we're both big Matt Henry fans. And also, spin has played a big part, so we can talk a lot about that. So, where do you want to go first? Do you want to go to the continued white ball success of Matt Henry, or do you want to talk about spin?
Oh, I mean, just a word to say that Matt Henry just continues to do what he does. And I think, as I said, it's not the perfect New Zealand performance. We haven't seen Trent Boult take wickets early on so far. That's probably something that we are hoping to see throughout the tournament, something we sort of come to expect. But Matt Henry there chipping in, picking up wicket early like he did in the England game, and then coming back late to finish the job. So, yeah, nothing really changes on him. He's been doing the job for a long time. On the spin side of things, it's funny. You look at the stats, the box score, I was going to call it, the scorecard, and you sort of see Mitchell Santner 5 wickets and think, geez, he bowled really, he must have done really well. I would say he was quite out of sorts today, particularly in the first 5 overs. The Netherlands, attacked him. They didn't let him settle, and the control and the pace that he was able to bowl within the England game wasn't quite there, and he bowled a few loose balls, got hit around. His first 5 overs I think he got 1 for 36. And actually, I felt Ravindra was bowling better than Santner for large parts of that game. Santner obviously came back, picked up the key wicket of Colin Ackerman, who batted really well. And at times, Netherlands, I feel like I've said it every time I've been on here. At time, these games, they've been wide margins, but at time, New Zealand, I think would have, when Ackerman and when Scott Edwards started going, Tajanid and Manuru, when those guys were in, New Zealand still had a job to do. I think the Netherlands had about 170 to get off, 170, 180 to get off their final 20, which is a very, very doable scenario. This kind of set up for ODI cricket at the moment. So, yeah, very, very, very impressive for New Zealand to do that job with the spin, because it's going to play a big factor in Chennai, you would think. I mean, after that Australia-India game, right, Baldy?
I think if we see the same wickets in Chennai throughout the tournament, we're going to see teams play 2, even 3 spinners. And what I really like about the New Zealand lineup is, even without picking Ish Sodhi, and I think New Zealand will pick Ish Sodhi instead of Lockie Ferguson going, and if they're going to go and play in Chennai, you've got Phillips, you've got Ravindra, you've got potentially Chapman, although we don't see Mark Chapman very much. You've got lots of different looks that New Zealand can throw at opposition that are quality spin options. We saw Australia 2 nights ago play India. Maxwell was ineffective. Zampa was ineffective. The thing I really like about New Zealand's spin options is, as a finger spinner, Mitchell Santner can bowl very effectively stump to stump. And we saw how effective Jadeja was bowling stump to the Australians. Yes, okay, he got 1 or 2 to jag, but Santner is very, very effective at controlling pace, as you said, controlling his length, just varying up where he releases the ball on the crease. He's got that subtle variation that if you could be accurate as a finger spinner and a guy misses one, as we saw a couple of times in the sittings, Ryan Klein missed one LBW. You don't have to miss by much on that Chennai wicket for a bowler to really be able to take advantage. So there's lots to like for New Zealand going forward in that spin department. And look, Mitchell Santner has been pilloried by a lot of New Zealand fans over the years as not being as good as he really is, right? He hasn't received the credit that he probably deserves. And I think hopefully now, having not bowled brilliantly and still got 5 for, this is the first time a New Zealand bowler or a New Zealand spinner has taken a 5 for at a World Cup. That was a surprising outcome, by the way. I didn't realise that stat, but that one came across my desk this morning. I feel like that's the shot in the arm for Mitchell Santner to go on and have a big tournament here, because if New Zealand are going to be effective in Chennai, he's going to be the one to do it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I think I said in the England review, I thought the England game was the best 10 overs I've seen from Mitchell Santner in an ODI. So to go on and then now, and there he didn't quite get the reward in the wicket column that he probably deserved. And today, today you see it where you haven't bowled at your absolute best, but you've picked up 5 for. And yeah, look, it's spot on. I mean, your Jadeja comment is very apt, I think, there, because yeah, they're similar types of bowlers. Jadeja probably a bit quicker through the air, and Santner can have that variation with his pace. But he's going to be so crucial to how we go in this tournament. And yeah, it's all positive signs, I think, because New Zealand again. I thought that the way we were going to have to balance our side was going to make it tough to have all the options that you're talking about. But with Ravindra sort of emerging as a must-have player now and kind of contributing with bat and ball in across both the games, it's opened up so many more options for New Zealand. So yeah, positive signs as we look towards this Bangladesh game for New Zealand.
I think the really positive thing for New Zealand from a Ravindra point of view is he's been able to get through 10 overs and I want to say only gone for 46, right? So he went under 5s, went under 6s. That's your fifth bowling option. And if your fifth bowling option is going to give you 10 overs, 1 for 46, you've got to take that every time because opposition will look to target Ravindra, I think, going forward in the tournament. So if he's got a couple of games where he's got through a workload, he's been relatively containing as a bowler. I mean, 30 dot balls is fantastic. Only went for 4 boundaries. All of those good signs for Rach and Ravindra going forward. So, look, there's lots to like for New Zealand. For the Netherlands, as you said, Colin Ackerman batted very, very well. They didn't get a lot from Bastelita, which they got heaps of in the first game, and then just contributions up and down the order, but nothing really to set the cat amongst the pigeons from a danger time or squeaky bum time from a New Zealand perspective. But a pretty good hit out for the Netherlands. I think they're up against a very, very good side, and they're gonna win a match or two in this World Cup, I think.
Yeah, I've been impressed with them. I think I said last time Ayan Dutt has been very impressive to start for them with the ball, and they just do things well. They just do the little things well. I think there's been, Scott Edwards is getting a lot of praise for his captaincy in this tournament. He rotates his bowlers very, very well. They've got, the little piece of paper that Max O'Dowd pulls out all the time, and they're certainly, like, they've obviously done their homework. They're really putting, trying to do all the little 1%ers that when you're, I think they called it a talent disadvantage and I think I don't think that's disrespectful. I think that's fair enough. They're a side that doesn't have the talent to call on that these other teams have at the moment. So they've got to put all their, every single thing they've got to get right. And I think both sides probably will be a little bit disappointed with some of their fielding. Daryl Mitchell was dropped on 22, which could have sort of changed the shape of New Zealand's innings again. So, yeah, a lot of little things that both sides can probably pick up on. But as you say, I do think the Netherlands they're not going to make it easy for anyone in this tournament to beat them. No. And I think they've got a couple of tough games, I think, to come up. I can't quite remember. I think it's South Africa and then Australia again. But yeah, you would expect that they're going to push everyone and make everyone work, which is really encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, great sides going forward for the Netherlands. They're well prepared. They're a good fielding side. Well, we saw them qualify for the World Cup. They played some really, really good cricket, and they're playing good cricket here. They just haven't been playing winning cricket, which is tough when you're coming up against sides that we expect to be in the conversation for the semi-finals, Pakistan and New Zealand. So lots to like for the Netherlands going forward. Anything that has to change for New Zealand here going into their upcoming matches against Chennai? We talked about, or in Chennai, I should say, we talked about spin becoming a factor. Kane might be coming back. Do we have an idea when Kane's going to come back, Stu? Is he back for the next game, or is it a couple of games from now?
I think all reports are that he's going to be back for the next game. He looks very, looks fit, and even in those warm-up games, looked fit. So yeah, Gary Stead's update has certainly suggested that they're hoping for him to come back for this game against Bangladesh in Chennai. And look, I think New Zealand's. It's interesting. You sort of. Part of me wants to say these next two games are going to define New Zealand's World Cup, but that's obviously a bit silly. And I think New Zealand is doing really well, and they always kind of talk about how it's just next game up, focus on next game. This Bangladesh game is going to be quite a tricky one, I think. We've seen Bangladesh, we just played Bangladesh in Bangladesh, beat them 2-0 in that series, and managed to handle things pretty well. But at that time, Bangladesh were, having their own selection difficulties, all sorts of things going on off the field as well. We're going to Chennai. Bangladesh has got a lot of good spinners, Mahidi Hassan and Shakib, obviously, the two main ones there. So, yeah, New Zealand's going to have some work to do. And if they can come away from that Bangladesh game with another victory and, top of the table, 3 wins in a row, they'll be very well placed for this tournament. So yeah, big game. Obviously, for me, someone who has been criticised on our YouTube channel for downgrading the Bangladesh team and their excitement, it's one I'm a bit nervous about. I would certainly hope that I don't end up looking silly after those comments. But yeah, I think big job to do for New Zealand ahead, and hopefully can stay unbeaten after these 2 games in Chennai and be 4-0.
Yeah, New Zealand really have to run their own race here against Bangladesh and Afghanistan. They're 2 teams that New Zealand would expect to beat and beat healthily over the next 2 games. But you have to have a look at the venue. Chennai, we saw if they get the same wicket that Australia got against India, spin will play a big part in that game. Bangladesh and Afghanistan have very, very good subcontinent-style spin options, particularly Afghanistan. They've got Rashid, they've got Mujib, they've got Muhammad Nabi. They've got some really, really good players that can exploit those conditions. So it's going to be a stern examination of batting against spin in Chennai for the next 2 games against New Zealand. But New Zealand have to run their own race. They've got to set themselves to be 4-0, coming into a big game against India halfway through the tournament and being able to say, well, we can put pressure on other sides by being 4-0. Other sides will be looking at us and thinking, holy shit, actually New Zealand are right in this tournament. And then they've got India, Australia, South Africa, Pakistan, 4 huge blockbuster games to get into the kind of meaty part of that tournament. So if New Zealand could sit there 4-0 and other sides are taking notice of them, then that's going to be huge for them going forward.
Absolutely, and yeah, as we move to tomorrow and another double header, England versus Bangladesh on the sandpit that is Dharamshala, and in the early game, and then Pakistan, Sri Lanka in the night game at Hyderabad. So yeah, couple of interesting games. It'd be nice to get a close one as we move on in this tournament. But yeah, from a New Zealand point of view, as I said, taking care of business, kind of win, and very happy to be sitting at the top of the table after a couple of games.
Oh, why wouldn't you be? And then coming up for the Netherlands, they've got South Africa up next, and then a game against Sri Lanka that I think, look now, Netherlands would be going, actually, we really got to target that game. We really want to get amongst it against Sri Lanka, and we think we could probably give them a bit of a shake-up. So that'll be an interesting one. And then they've got Australia in Delhi on the 25th of October. So 3 big games coming up for the Netherlands as well. I think they'll be targeting at least that Sri Lanka game to really set some cats amongst some pigeons. So it's going to be an interesting couple of games coming up for that side as well.
Beautiful. Nothing more from me, Baldy. You take us away.
No, nothing further, Your Honour. Look, it's been a great half an hour sitting down with you, talking spin, as always, Stuart. Thank you for tuning in, listeners and viewers, to the Top Order Podcast on another World Cup Daily Update. We'll be back in your feed every day through the World Cup. breaking down each of the games as we go through the group stage and then also the semi-finals and the finals. Look, take care of yourselves and each other out there. Keep enjoying this fantastic World Cup of cricket and also the World Cup of rugby as well. As long as you're not Australian, there's plenty to like about the World Cup in rugby coming up as well. The knockout stages just starting in that tournament. So stay tuned for World Cups all over the place as we go forward through the month of October. But take care of yourselves and each other. We'll see you again soon on the Top Order Podcast. Bye for now.